Hi, this is Carrie Hummingbird, and this is Soul Nectar Show, that show that talks about all things essence, our connection to that which is bigger than us, our understanding of the universe in a more profound way, and how we might fit into that bigger scheme, and how we find our purpose and our passion in life, how we connect to that really juicy, yummy place of soul nectar that lives within us. And I'm really delighted today to welcome to the show Sara Wiseman. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here. So Sara Wiseman is a visionary spiritual teacher. She's a Nautilus Award-winning author of many books on spirituality and intuition. So, that's why I'm like digging this interview. I'm very excited. She is the founder of Intuition University and has taught tens of thousands of students worldwide via her books, courses, and trainings. So some of the books that she has authored that you might be aware of or familiar with are Messages from the Divine, Wisdom for the Seeker Soul, Writing for the Divine, How to Use Channeling for Soul Growth and Healing, Your Psychic Child, How to Raise Your Intuitive and Spiritually Gifted Kids of All Ages. And I love that because usually those of us who follow in this path end up with kids that also have budding skills. So it's super fun. You get to train the next generation. She's the host of the popular Ask Sara and Spiritual Psychic podcast with over 1.7 million subscribers, writes the award-winning Daily Divine blog, and is a best-selling contributor to the Daily Om, which I love the Daily Om. She's an award-winning singer-songwriter. She's released 4 music CDs with her band, Martyrs of Sound, and she lives in Oregon with her family. So her website is www.sarawiseman.com, and we'll be giving you a link to that in your email that you'll be getting from me. So I warned you briefly that I love to start this broadcast with personal stories because I really found that before you've awakened or before you sort of come along this path, it's hard to grasp it unless we hear someone's personal story of reflection, and then we can almost imagine it better for ourselves, or we can tap into that energy. It's just such a delight. It's like sitting around the campfire sharing stories. So, share us a story to open us up from your personal life and your path and how you came to be who you are right now.
Well, I guess my path started when I was really little, but I didn't know that it was going to be a path, or that it was just sort of how I was in the world. And I was really fascinated by all things religious. And so my mom would take us to the little library in Seattle, and I would get these stacks of, books on every single world religion, because at that time I'm having the feeling they probably didn't have metaphysical or paranormal books, or maybe I wasn't allowed to go into those sections. So we'd gather these books on religion, these sacred texts, and read them. I was 8 or 9. And I would practice doing the Holy Communion with potato flakes, and I would do seance, just trying. And I think what I was trying to do is to connect with the divine, but we didn't have really religion in my family. My parents weren't religious at all, so I was seeking this essence or this connection, but I didn't know how to get there, and there weren't any examples. So fast forward in 2000, which is a long time ago now, but that was when things started for me. I had a near-death experience, and I don't want to go into too many details about that in particular, but what happened was I saw, I guess I'm going to say the way I think of it, I saw the energy of God. I visibly saw the golden white essence, and I just knew. And so all these years of seeking the divine or seeking God that I knew was there, but I'd never experienced it. And then suddenly in that moment, I just experienced it. So, and that's different than the classic white light at the end of the tunnel tale, but that was it for me. And so this was 17 years ago now, right? And so often what happens when people have these near-death experiences, they go into the dark night of the soul, and yes, I tumbled right down into that hole perfectly on track. And everything in my life changed, from that point. I ended a marriage. I lost all my work that I was doing, and just all identities were stripped away. And then so the process of beginning to figure out, well, if I'm not all of that society's saying, well, who am I? What am I? If none of those things are going to stick anymore. Um, and I think now, it's funny because once you know how to get there into that divine space, you find as you go forward on the path, like you can get there all the time. It's just, you just have to sort of go there once. And that was my experience. And now, it's not that there aren't hard days or difficult days, but knowing that is available is the absolute change in the entire consciousness or the entire perception.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you said about the dark night of the soul, and
Yeah.
that how everything, all your identities get stripped away. And, I consider that to be the journey of the butterfly, the journey of
Hmm.
metamorphosis, because we come in as caterpillars, and we're
Hmm.
munching away at everything, and we're growing and we're expanding, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to come in and do that. But at some point, we're gearing up. It's not just a bunch of consumption. Like it's actually intended to go somewhere really special, and that's inside that chrysalis. That's
Yeah.
where the magic happens. But it's terrifying. A lot of people avoid that chrysalis. They say, no way, no how. I know what that thing is. I'm not getting anywhere near it. Give me some drugs. Give me some
Mhm.
wine.
Right.
Give me
Right.
anything. Pharmaceuticals. It's anything to keep me away from that chrysalis.
Right. Well, and I think what I found, so my experience was, that was 17 years ago now. And what I find is that the opening keeps happening. Like you just keep going through, I call it like these doors of opening. You just keep going through the next door and then the next door. And it is a little bit of going through a door and then there's a little mini dark night and then going through the next door and there's as you adjust to your new understanding, it is really letting go of so many things that we are raised and taught that are important, and we're just letting go of all of, or as many as we're able to let go of is the process. So
I think it's that first becoming that's so difficult. It's the first journey that is the most
mhm.
terrifying because it's happening and you really can't stop it. And the more you resist it, the more dark it gets. So you actually do have to surrender and let go of everything you thought you needed to be happy. And but on the other
Yeah.
side of that is like this, like, wow, for me, that's when the magic started. That's when like I realized this consciousness was playing with me. Like it's like,
Mhm.
hey, I want to show you something.
Yeah. Well, and I just discovered, and maybe this is appropriate, maybe it's not, but I just discovered this funny TV show called, I think it's called Kevin Probably Saves the Universe. And it's about this guy that's sort of bumbling along through life. And what I like about this little show is that they show the universe getting physically involved with this character, this guy, like physically blocking his path with a gate or a tornado or all the things. And what I have found is that is how it works. The universe is so actively in nature, in animals, in dreams, in you find the book with the perfect phrase in it, you find the conversation, that all you have to do is really kind of show up in openness and everything is there for you. It's just we forget this and they're like, where's my map? And I need to use my society map. And it's like, no, just throw the map away. You'll be guided. You'll be guided.
I've learned a lot by studying and thinking about this metaphor because I ran across this metaphor of the butterfly quite often in my early spiritual training days. And I thought, wow, which has only been 6 years I've been at this, by the way. Like it's been like the fastest jet ride, that you could
Yes,
ever imagine. I'm like, who am I? I'm not even the same person I was a year ago. Like it's so fast.
that's right.
But it's so cool because like this metaphor, it really teaches us, the butterfly teaches us exactly what we need to do is that you it has an innate design. I know that I have an innate design. I don't need to do it. I need to just be and
Right.
pay attention, and the universe is going to show me where I put the blocks to what I'm supposed to be becoming that I think I'm not, like I think
Right.
I'm in a different idea. It's getting out of
Right.
my ideas, I think.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about the idea, like you hear this idea of hive mind a lot lately, and I have been using the term group thought as this idea of society's thoughts and demands and conditioning and misbeliefs and all of that. Um, and then when I first heard hive mind, I was thinking about, well, that's group thought. Or hive mind is some idea of consciousness. I know this is sort of a strange idea, but what I realize now is hive mind is kind of when we're all in our brain mind or our ego mind. That's hive mind. Consciousness is when we're just in flow with the universe, like it's oneness. And so I've just been noticing, because right now in this time frame, there's a lot of stress in the collective. There's a lot of stress in everyone's feelings, and we need to understand we can kind of choose like lower vibration or higher vibration choice of how we're going to experience all these stresses and strains that are going on, in particular at the end of 2017. It's a rough ride for a lot of folks, and empathic people are feeling it. And how do we deal with all of those, feelings that we're feeling from each other?
Well, here's what I think. First of all, I think like some of us came in a little early and had that journey already. Like we went through that, and everybody else is like blithely going along, in
Mm-hmm.
in the societal idea about like let's go drink and have fun and party and all that. And like some of us were like having a serious awakening and having a terrible time while everybody else is having fun. Okay, so now
Right.
we're ready, and I'm actually excited. Like for me, this is exciting time. Like I am delighted. Like I've never been happier than I am right now, because I'm like, wow, like I finally get to step into purpose. Like this is what I've been training for. This is what I've been waiting for. And I'm excited. And for me, I have to kind of keep coming down and going, okay, not everybody's excited. Some people are not at the party yet. And they were at the party they thought we were all supposed to be at. And now they're like, wait a second,
Right.
there's a new party. Oh,
Right.
get to the
Right.
party, and I got to go through this thing called the chrysalis, and I have to let go of everything. What? And they're kind of like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
know about this. But I think that as we, as empaths, I think a big thing we can do is shift the mindset from like armoring
Mm-hmm.
to
Yes.
filling in. It's like, when you have those things where you're like, wow, that's really heavy energy, I want to go like this. It's like,
Right.
no, like that's your opportunity to go, wow, I'm really triggered by the heavy energy, I need to clear it in me. And then it'll just roll right off. Like there's no Velcro, I won't even feel it. I'll be aware of it and have compassion, but I won't be affected by it. I think that's
Right.
our work.
Yeah. Or the way that I like to look at it too, in addition, is you just kind of open up into everything as opposed to resisting it. You just like
Oh, yes.
just open up, and then it's almost like you dissolve into everything, and so nothing is a problem.
You
So
dissolve and evolve.
yeah,
Like as
yeah.
you kind of you face those things that are the energies that are thick and dense, as
Hmm.
you bring yourself to it with attention, it actually like it dissolves it, and then it's just like,
Hmm.
and then there's this opening and the light comes in, and it's like, oh, it's so much better now.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I do think one point that you said earlier was what I found back in 2000. So this idea of different people kind of waking up at different times. And what I found in 2000 was that even though I was seeking and seeking and seeking to understand what had happened to me, there weren't very many resources. Now, of course, there were a lot of resources. I was blocked from finding them. And so one of the reasons I started on my path, because my focus is on training people in intuition or creating I don't know, that help people understand how to use that aspect of communicating with the universe. The idea that because I was blocked from finding anything, I had to go about and create those systems so I could figure out what was happening. So anyway, it's just interesting how we're set off on our path, and then this happens so that our path is nudged a little to, the left or nudged to the right. And as we move further down, we realize, oh, there was divine reason for all of this, for all of the way it unfolded. And that still continues for everyone, I believe.
And it's so true because you get so close to it, you can't even see it. Like,
Yes,
like
that's right.
I knew that I've been working this last year on refining, like I can't help the
Mm-hmm.
whole world. So what is it I'm actually here to do? Like, what am I
Mm-hmm.
here to do? And then the soul nectar thing dropped in. I'm like, oh, I'm here to share messages. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, what's my message? Like, what am I supposed to be sharing?
Right.
And
Right.
I was so close to it. I couldn't see it. And I'm like working with coaches. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, what do I do? And it just dropped in. It's like, oh, the reason it's been so hard is because I do the thing that I'm supposed to teach. I reinvent myself constantly. And so I couldn't
Yeah.
really get the message because I kept changing it.
Right.
So
Right. Right. Because that is what you're teaching,
how to do that, how to become the new thing, like how to really feel in your heart align,
Mm-hmm.
and then reach into like that next space, like become that vibration. Because when you become it, you can't help but receive it. That's how the universe works.
Right.
You are what you receive.
Yeah. That's the dimension you exist in. Yeah. 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 Well, and I do think too, this idea of, so when we choose to exist in, I sometimes don't like to say higher vibration, lower vibration, because it almost is like a judgment, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And when we choose to exist in a level of divine connection and a level of being led by the universe instead of trying to force it, our reality does change. Our reality becomes easier and smoother, and it's just like we're living a different. It's not that only that we've changed; it's that our entire life becomes a different life than we were going to have when we were trying to force everything, out of our own minds. When we start to let the universe lead us and go in that flow state, our lives begin to change in ways that we couldn't even, like you were saying, 6 years ago you couldn't imagine being this,
I was
and
a
now it's like,
technical
of
writer.
course it is. Yeah, but now it's like, of course it is. What else could I? It's so obvious.
Well, yeah, but this is the butterfly part, and I think like
Mhm.
when I see butterflies and I see caterpillars, I just go, the butterflies are adorable. Like, look at them.
Mhm.
They fly, they get to feast on nectar all day long. And as they follow their hearts, they feed the rest of the world. Like, they pollinate plants, like they're in total reciprocity all the time. And that, I think,
Mhm.
is, for me, that's like the epitome of evolution, is that as you feed yourself and you're delighted, you delight everybody around you. Like, it's just a win-win-win-win-win. Everybody's winning all the time because you're just
Mhm.
following your heart. And
Mhm.
I think that's beautiful. I like that metaphor.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you a question though, because this is the part I'm at right now. So I love what you were talking about with stepping out of that sort of ego mind, which I consider to be like our caterpillar, like stepping out of that place and letting go, trying to figure it out, and pushing and forcing, which I did a lot of my life. So fessing up, like, huge part of my life. I
Sure.
was right there.
Sure.
And
Everyone.
it's worse because I'm a manifester by design. So I really had reason to think like, oh wow, I can make it happen,
Right.
But to
Right.
leave that aside and go, no, that's not exactly how it works. And but now that I'm in this place of like, it's opening and I'm allowing and I'm flowing and I'm like willing to let go of the identity,
Mhm.
there's a part of me that's like a little terrified at how smoothly everything goes. Like, there's a little part of me that's so terrified at like how fast it moves, and it's like constantly going, and it's like, boom, there it is, there it is, there it is. And I feel like I have to keep up. Talk about that a little, because I could use some help with that.
Yeah, I'm in that place too. So I think um, a couple things. I think time has really, our experience of time has really speeded up for everyone. Um, and then I think for those who are really actively following this path, like really committed to this path, like you are and I am and other people are, it does start to go, it's almost like the universe pushes us to our edge. And instead of it being a hard edge, it's more like we just have to fall off the cliff and just trust, like it's going to be, we don't have to worry about it too much. Yeah, I find it, and the way that electronica works in terms of it's so easy for people to find each other now. And so at least I notice, like, I get these emails coming in, it's like, what? Doing what? Okay, yes. And just keeping saying yes, even though I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, for a particular situation, or I just keep pretty much, if the vibrational level is compatible, like for you, I just like, yes, that'll be great. But if the vibrational level is compatible, I just am like a yes. And then the more yeses you choose at that compatibility level, the more you are not, these situations don't come up anymore where the vibration is, something you wouldn't be interested in, or something that's from the old you. So I just keep saying the universe knows what it's doing, and I don't have to, one, be in charge, and two, I don't really have to worry about how fast the flow stream is, because if the universe is taking me there, I must be ready, or at least can manage. just show up and see. Just show up and see what happens. I don't have to be all like it has to be a certain way. It just can be what it is. That's enough a lot of the times.
Okay, so while you were, I just got a download while you were talking. I want to share. So this is so fascinating. It's a shuffling around. So there's not a good or a bad with the energies. It's that the stuckness, the heavy energy is us resisting being
Yes.
shuffled into the place we're meant to be. So a lot of us are in the wrong spot. And, we could be in a better spot. We could be in a better alignment. We could be doing a better job. We could be in a better relationship. And so it's a shuffling. We're just being shuffled if we allow it. And when we get shuffled into the right spot, then it'll open up and it's like beautiful. And so the heavy energy is the resistance. It's
Yeah.
heavy. The flow happens when you allow yourself to be shuffled. I think that's what I just
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, no, and so I just had the thought. So I recalled, so when I was a kid, I was really afraid of jumping off the diving board into the pool. And I would just stand there, just quaking and shivering you know, and I think sometimes I even got thrown off by the swim instructor, which was very traumatic. But at some point, I just decided I'm going to just start jumping. And then, of course, it's the most exhilarating, delicious, fantastic, astounding feeling, this jumping through the air and landing in the water. And I had been afraid. And really, it was the great gift to jump, the whole thing, the courage to jump, the going through the air, the landing in the water, the exhilaration. And I think that's kind of where we all are, is it's new, so we're afraid, but realizing jumping is the most fun part, just jumping in. And I was even thinking the butterfly is not afraid when it's like on a twig. It's not afraid to fly to the next flower. It's just like, I want to fly. just
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not no fear of, that's what it's there to do. That's what it's there to do, is to fly to the next nectar pot or flower.
It is, and
Yeah.
it doesn't go, I think that one over there would taste the best. It's
Right.
not
Right.
assessing it. It's
Right.
going.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets that feeling, that urge, and it acts, and the impulse. I guess I'd rather use the word impulse because it implies a higher level of following rather than.
Or I would say that the butterfly is directed by communication with the breeze and the wind and the scent, like all of it. It doesn't really plan. It is part of the oneness in its journey to the next flower. It's just part of everything, and so it just goes where it's supposed to go. That's how I would see it.
Yeah, and to get to that place where we can do that, that's the work because we have free will.
Hmm. Right, right. And free will in some ways seems to be less useful than it used to. It's like, it's free will to surrender to being led is what I'm working on right now. It's just, okay, I've got my mind, ego, personality, and we'll just kind of leave that over here in the other room,
Check it
hopefully,
at the
and
door.
lock the door, make the key, throw away, and I'll just try and move from this other part of myself and try and remember, that's what I'm trying to do. So, yeah.
So
And go ahead. You go ahead.
let's back up just a little, because I feel like, you know, there's definitely a segment of my audience is going to completely be right along for this ride, and then there's other people that go, you're in another galaxy, like I don't even know how to get to that place, like that is so far
Mm-hmm.
from where I'm at. And I keep remembering my first really big intuitive hit right at the time I needed to change my life completely is all it was a visual. It was a visual, but it also sunk into my heart. Like it was a knowing. It was a visual in a knowing. It was the end of the rope. Like I actually saw a ship's rope in my mind's eye, and it went
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, okay, it's time to leave my marriage. That's the
Mm-hmm.
end of the rope, you know? And I always knew that phrase. I don't know where I got that from, but I always knew that phrase. And then there was the visual. I knew I had been feeling in my marriage. I'd been thinking about it at that moment. The end of the rope showed up. I felt it in my heart, and I was like, I felt so clean and clear about it. Like, okay, I've done what I can. That's
Mm-hmm.
the end of the rope. And I was able to make the decision to move, like to go and take the steps to end the marriage and go on to this next unknown part of my journey.
Right.
So talk a little bit about, how can people start to learn to trust that? For whatever reason, I was able to trust that, but how can people begin to start to trust that inner, those
Mm-hmm.
messages, those things?
Yeah. So in the stuff that I work in, we do a lot with working with the guides, and um, so there's sort of two ways that we can receive information from the universe. One is by going within, meditating, praying, working with the guides, getting what I call guiding visions, hearing messages or downloads. And then the other way is we can expand out and allow the outer environment to show us by animals or nature or events or synchronicities and so forth. So we can go within or we can go without. But I like to focus on going within to gather these messages from the universe, these guiding messages. And because the universe doesn't necessarily work in, sometimes it does, but a lot of times the universe doesn't work in language the way that we're talking. A lot of times the universe works in showing a symbolic image in our mind's eye. So we work a lot in what I teach. We just work on asking, give me guidance on question A, and then we allow this image to come in, and then, or give me guidance on question B, and we allow this image to come in. And often I'll work with people because I'm so tricky. I try and confuse their minds a bit. We'll do these readings or these guiding visions, but we won't know the question that we're answering. And this helps people gain trust in, it's easy to think, universe, what is the answer to question A? And this image comes in, they're like, well, I just made that up. But if you're working from a blind question, you never know what you're answering. And so you start to trust that this information, these visions are correct. And like you just saw this end of the rope, what I find is that people who do this practice of seeking these guiding visions, it's incredibly accurate. Not maybe at the very beginning, but as you kind of get the hang of it, you just start to be able to communicate and get all the guidance on everything that you could ever need. Sometimes with my students, we do a process, it's called the Big Blind Reading. It's 40 questions. They don't know any of the questions. And we go through one at a time, and they write down the answers. And at the end, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm correct on everything. And this is just how it works with a little bit of practice. So that's I work on that symbolic image that comes into the mind's eye. That's what I like to do a lot of work in, to help people find instant guidance.
So I love that, because I am very visual in my,
Mm-hmm.
I was an artist my whole life, so I'm very
Yes.
visual. I was right brain's totally open. What about people that are sort of left brainish? Does it still work
Mm-hmm.
for them? Because I know that they want to ask that question. So I just,
Sometimes people that have really intensive, say, a very traditional meditation practice, or maybe they're really into an Eastern practice or a very particular practice that they've learned, very specifically over time. Sometimes they'll have trouble. I talk about going into like, which house are you going to go to in your mind? Are you going to go to like house A or house B? And sometimes they'll always go to house C because that's where they've been going for a long time. So sometimes that takes a little adjustment. But again, if going within isn't working for a while, we can always switch to that expanding without, and they can go on a walk and allow an animal to come to them, or they can pay attention to the weather and allow the weather to inform them, or they can watch for those events and synchronicities. And those are other ways. The information is always there. We can just choose, which, if one thing's not working, try one of the other process to make it happen.
I love that. I've studied a lot of shamanism, so I really love this idea of working with nature as like everything is part of the consciousness, and everything is a way that the consciousness can bring you messages and communicate with you. Animals especially, I love that. I've had some experiences where, definitely got whacked in the face by a dragonfly one morning, it's like, okay, and that was exactly what I needed, that message. And called on Hummingbird in the woods one time at a retreat where I was solo in the woods, and I started singing on a rock and calling in all the mountains and everything. And then I called in Hummingbird, and there was one. It came.
Yes.
Like, right here. That's the kind of thing that happens that I think is so magical. That's what I'm talking about. Like when you enter this phase and you get through you leave the caterpillar and you go into the cocoon and you go, okay, I'm going to metamorphosize. At the other side, you get to have this. Like, who doesn't want to interact with spirit this way? Like, it's fascinating.
Well, and it's very much like, I don't know if when you were a child you read all of these fairy tales and so forth, but I certainly did, and that is what it's like on the other side. It's everything is communicating, and it's not that the butterfly comes necessarily and is like, hello, here is your answer. And maybe some days it is like that, but it's subtle. It's very subtle. And the more we open, the more we tune into how subtle it is. It's almost like it's it's this whisper as opposed to I don't even know how to. That's not quite the right way of putting it, but it's a subtle thing, and you have to get very subtle in your approach in order to receive the kind of communication back in the way that it's communicated.
You've got to slow down and tune in a new way.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Tune into a different station than your brain.
That is excellent. A different, yes, instead of brain FM, you want to go to soul, some kind of soul internet radio, probably, because it's not a terrestrial station.
No.
I don't know. Yeah. Different station.
Different frequency.
And I think, and then people are like, well, I can be intuitive or spiritual or conscious in my spiritual life, but then when I get back to my real life, I have to be practical. And it's like, no, you don't. You can use this whole new way for everything,
including business.
Well, yes, especially or even for medical things, disease and so forth. You can use you get to choose which way you want to operate in the world, but this is available if you want to work in this other way. It works for everything.
Yeah, this leads me to my idea about, I'm launching the Skills Not Pills movement to get people to see that there's lots of skills they could be having that, would keep them sort of out of doctors' offices and needing pills. And this has a lot to do with it, intuition and knowing about the power of healing and choice and all these grounding skills and things. And so I had so I'm on this bent, this is that's where my soul and my body and my mind is. And my child recently, my ex-husband is a little bit more in the Western, he's still in the paradigm. So, he wanted to take the child to the doctor for the upset stomach. And this guy, the computer was down. The computer was down. And he just kind of the doctor's just sitting in the office with us like, well, I'm really frustrated right now because I can't help you because the computer's down. I need the computer and the results in order to analyze it to give you something. And
Right.
the whole time he's saying that, I'm thinking to myself, if we got to the acupuncturist, he would just be listening to your blood and your pulse and listening to
Right.
what you're saying, and he'd be knowing what's going on.
Right.
It's a whole different approach.
Right. Yeah. Or even in some cases, not maybe in this particular instance, but in some cases, uh, asking the body, saying, "Hello, body, just tell me, what is this, an emotional thing? Is this a, did I eat too many grapefruit? What is the thing? And do I need some more water?" Just the asking the cells on our own, or asking the systems, and just seeing what the answer is. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And there's a level of discernment too. There's a level of discernment with intuition, right? And with messages to know, like, where's that message coming from? Where's that thought
Mhm.
coming from? So I think this is a big area for people to explore. And I'm so glad that you're doing this work in the world, because we need people like you to help people to learn the skills of paying attention, tuning into that soul station,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
learning how to decipher the messages, that are coming in. Where are they coming from?
And I think too, it's very, at least I found at the beginning, um, I was so over the top excited, and there's this tendency to, um, I don't know, I got an image of a red balloon, and thus I quit my job that minute. It's like, no, just kind of like let things flow for a while. Like, just get used to, just get used to the language. And if there's something that you're meant to do immediately, you'll absolutely know this. Like, you had that clear, and you said that you had the image plus you had the heart. You're going to have that combination of the soul and the heart speaking to you so clearly, that deep, deep knowing. Um, and or sometimes people get overly excited, maybe if they're using, say, some kind of oracle cards, which I enjoy but don't use. I use more the mental, the visual images instead. Um, Allow multiple pieces of guidance. Don't just have it be one card. Have it be one card plus what nature tells you, plus what your emotions tell you, plus what your meditation tells you, and use all of those systems to sort of check and recheck until you kind of get used to how guidance works. Sometimes we get, it's the easy way. I'll just pull a card and then I'll just do that. It's like, no, just be more discerning, use many, many systems for a while, and then after a little while, you'll just be like, okay, I get it. I got it. I understand how it works now. So
It's the
that's
impatience dragon. It's like we all
yeah.
have the impatience dragon just like poking at us, like to have the answer today, like right now, right now, right now.
Mhm.
But you have to realize that even that is part of the matrix that we live in.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That is part of it. So if you really want to be free, you've got to decide that you don't believe the fear, and you don't believe the time deadlines, and you don't believe any of
Mhm.
that. You just have to decide, I don't believe it, and run an
Mhm.
experiment, for 1 week. If you spent one whole week not believing deadlines and not believing, and you took a moment for yourself to get into the intuition space and really dive in and get that clear guidance, would things work out better?
Well, and even in our connection, which we were supposed to connect later the day, blah blah
Yeah,
blah, and then I just knew that we were going to be connecting this morning, so I just sort of was like, okay, well, that hasn't happened yet, but I can feel it's going to happen, and here we are.
I
So
knew it was going to happen.
yeah,
I could feel it
yeah,
too. I was like, well, she's just doing something right now, but she'll get the email and then we'll be on the call. It's
right,
all going to work out fine. And it did.
right, right. It's just being open to the space, and we don't know why it was delayed. Like, I don't know why, what's going to happen during the time that we were previously scheduled, or during the time that you're going to have your son's soccer game, and we don't know what's going to happen then, but we know that this was the time that things were converging for us to be together.
Exactly. And I had just happened to have this spot open and you
Of
happen to
course.
be open too.
Yep, I know. I know.
It was
That's
all on the
great.
fly, and things can work so easily that way when you're in that sacred space within your heart and you're just flowing. So I
Yeah.
love this. So, okay, I want to give you a chance to tell our listeners, anything that you have that ongoing that you'd like to, because this will be aired again and again. It'll be on
Mhm.
iTunes and places. So
Mhm.
what do you have that you'd like them to
Yes.
participate with you on?
Thank you. So I have a new book coming out in May 2018, but you can pre-order it. I think I'll put it up on my front page on the website. It's called Messages from the Divine, and it's a spiritual teaching system. It's channeled, and I'm really, really, really thrilled about it. And then I guess the other thing is I'd love for people to go to what people really benefit from is all these courses that I offer in partnership with Daily Om. So you can find them on my website or you can find them on Daily Om. And I think I have 20. So hopefully there's something, something that will catch the interest or be of use to somebody on whichever part of the path that they're on. So
Great tools. Wonderful, wonderful tools. Yeah, and I checked those. I like them. They're
yeah,
really awesome. And I love that they're really reasonably priced because
right.
we're starting this journey. I can't tell you how many people as a healer is doing this work. I like to call it mentor now because it's not
Mhm.
exactly accurate. I'm holding a channel open. So as I do this work with people, a lot of people that are approaching me are kind of like, wow, I really need help. I don't know where to start. It's like, it's so great. I can just point them to these resources that are very reasonably priced. It's
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I do offer also because I notice it's sometimes difficult for people in different countries where the exchange rate's really high. So I also have for free the radio show, which free readings, it's Ask Sarah, and then the podcast. And then I also have the Daily Divine, which is spiritual teachings to your inbox. So I like to offer, I think I think there might be 500 podcasts and maybe not five. I think there's 400 free articles. So people, if they're like, I want to find out about this, just go in there and search away with your keywords and it'll pop up and there's some inspiration or information for you.
Awesome. Well, look in the show notes for that. They'll be in your email if you get it through your email inbox, or it'll be in the show notes if you're finding us on iTunes. So you'll be able to access all of that good stuff that Sarah's already put together. So it's great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great delight for me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I know we'll connect again because I have that feeling. So,
Good, 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 good. Excellent.
and I always give kisses to everybody before we tune out. So here they come, everybody. Mwah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love
Thanks
you
very
guys
much
so
for
much.
having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.